Yes. Hello, my beautiful friends. What an amazing day it is. Welcome back. I hope your weekend was absolutely outstanding and you have returned bursting full of energy, ready to go, because we've got some J6 business to attend to. It's been pipe bomber extravaganza over the weekend. Of course, talking about this woman, Shauni Kerkhoff is her name. Many people don't want to say her name. We'll talk about that. But this was a report that came out over from the Blaze, and it is about allegations that a government employee who was a former Capitol Hill a former Capitol Hill police officer, she, at the time, the allegations are, may have left a pipe bomb or a training exercise device or something, not even knowing what she was involved in. And now there are questions about it. And what we're wondering about is why, if she was a government employee and she is still a government employee, why we're not hearing from our government, from our representatives, somebody who works for the Capitol Hill chief of police, somebody who works for the FBI, somebody who works for the CIA, easily could come out and just release a statement saying, we've done our due diligence, we've investigated whether there were any operational training exercises or, unsanctioned training exercises, or pick your bureaucratic technobabble, but released any type of a statement to explain this over the weekend, and they haven't. And it's not just me who's anxious about this whole thing. We've got Stephen Sund, who is saying the same. I'm anxiously awaiting anything. He's the former Capitol Hill chief of police, who's saying maybe we can have a statement from somebody in the government. And thus far, not much. We're going to go through it. Brianna Mello said that she did get a statement from the FBI, so we'll see what they said about this, but they don't really even address the main story that's capturing everybody's attention. But it's now being scrambled around because we don't know if it's real or if it's not, what the underlying evidence is. And so we'll go through the story once again and just hit the highlights on the article. We did a full video on the article, but Steve Baker and some other people over at the Blaze who have been very credible for a long time, put together a report, and now we're asking the government to respond. I got a bunch of stuff queued up. I got Dan Bongino, Kash Patel, I've got CIA, DOJ, Pam Bondi, everybody, to see if they've had anything to say about this shocking story that makes a lot of sense from our perspective. And again, we'll go through all of that. But we got a bunch more reaction, and we also have a letter from the subcommittee on the January 6th committee, which is now sending letters over there to other people. So a bunch of stuff that we're going to go through, reactions from Thomas Massie. Here's the letter that we'll get into. Then we'll turn our attention over to the trial transcripts, the actual testimony, because this woman, Shauni Kerkhoff, who is allegedly the pipe bomber, but may not have anything to do with it, as a Capitol Hill police officer, she was involved there on January 6th, and she did testify at trial. And one individual who had her come and testify against him is this person called Guy Reffitt, and he shared the transcripts, baby. And so we'll look into it just to see what went down. We've got the opening transcripts, opening arguments transcripts, and some of her testimony that took place in court in the prosecution of this gentleman right here, Guy Wesley Reffitt, who you may remember back from the J6 saga. So we'll go through some transcripts. We'll learn a lot more about this former Capitol Hill police officer, whether she is the pipe bomber or not. Those are all allegations, total speculation. But this is a government employee and was a government employee. And we've got questions about our government. And I think we have a right to ask some questions. And even Christina Bobb was out saying this whole thing might have been an inside job. So it's going to be a beautiful stream. Thanks for being here and warming up the tubes with us and joining us on this lovely and incredible Monday. We had a great members only stream this morning as well, and we'd love it if you became a member so you could join us and have some fun with us when we talk about some other things that we can't usually squeeze in here. And we had a great time this morning talking about a bunch of other stuff. So come join us on the members only streams in the morning, and it's a great way to support our show and to meet other amazing community members out there and maybe even fall in love. You never know. All right, so thanks for supporting our work. And members, stick around. We'll do an after party after the show is over and get into it again. But now, let's just dive right in. We got a bunch of stuff to get to today. Allegations about the January 6th pipe bomber continue to ramble around the interwebs. In this story, we've got Shauni Kerkhoff, and she, of course, is the alleged pipe bomber. The Blaze released a story explaining that they have done some gate analysis, and they've identified somebody that they think is a prime suspect. And of course, a lot of people don't want to talk about this story. I was kind of poking around before we came on the show and heard a lot of people don't even want to say her name, don't want to talk about it at all. And our perspective is, at the time, she was a police officer. She was currently is a former Capitol Hill police officer who was there on scene the day of January 6th and testified in a January 6th trial. We've got the transcripts here pulled up. So she was part of the government. This is not a private citizen that people are making false accusations about. We're not making any accusations, actually. We want to know there's a perfectly good, plausible reason why she was dropping those bombs off. Maybe it was part of a training exercise. Everything, hindsight is 2020. Of course, looking back on January 6th, you can say, well, those pipe bombs were pretty dang important, but not on January 5th, if that's when she allegedly dropped those off. Maybe they were just part of a training exercise as far as she knew. So maybe she was just following orders from somebody else, not making any even criminal allegations against her at all. Although it's, very curious, if she wasn't, then what was she doing that for? But the point is, she may have just been following the rules, and we just have questions about what happened on January 6th. That's all. Not making any accusations or trying to defame her or smear her reputation. We've got questions because she testified, and other people are saying that she was the pipe bomber. And we're asking, since she is still a government employee, for the government to respond to these allegations. Wouldn't that be pretty easy and obvious? If they say she was a former Capitol Hill Capitol Hill police officer, and she was responsible for the pipe bomb, maybe the Capitol Police could come out and say, we investigated these allegations. We looked into any open training exercises or any unsanctioned training. We did inventory on all of our devices. Okay. We had nothing to do with this, and we are still looking into it. We appreciate citizen journalists or whatever, but we remind you that we're investigating every single lead and leave it to the professionals. A statement like that, they haven't done that at all. And if they do, we'll of course see what it says. But Brianna Mello did get a little bit of a statement back. She posted this. She's over with InfoWars. She's amazing. And she posted this. She said, update. The FBI has officially gone on the record with me after the story came out saying that this woman may have been the pipe bomber. They claim that they are still investigating who placed the pipe bombs on Capitol Hill. And pipe bomber is really just a euphemism. They were kind of inert as far as we know. We went through the whole deconstruction of the devices to even question if they were operable. There were some, it looks like, explosive-ish materials that you'd say might just be in there just because we want to get a dog to sniff it appropriately. And if it was a training exercise, it explains the video. Here, just walk around with these pipe bombs. Don't just go plant them somewhere. Walk around all over the place so the dogs have to sniff them up and go up this street and down the street and do a couple loops and then drop one off over there and then drop one off over there. And then we're going to go and investigate it. And she's like, okay, sounds good. And walks around and does it. And the whole thing may have been orchestrated, but she's just a small little peon and a little component in the whole thing. So Brianna says, can you please give us a statement on this? Because maniacs like Rob and other people on the internet, like pipe bomber, got her. And we want answers on this so bad that we're trying to get to the bottom of it. So she sends a letter over. Below is the FBI statement. So they respond. They say, okay. Below is the FBI statement. The investigation into who placed the pipe bombs on Capitol Hill on Jan 5 remains a high priority for the FBI and our law enforcement partners. Okay. A $500,000 reward remains in effect for information leading to the arrest and prosecution of the individual who placed the pipe bombs. The tips we have received so far from the American people, including open source leads, have helped us advance the investigation with expediency and professionalism, and we ask the public to continue to assist us by taking a fresh look at our new information page, which we did many months ago, which also includes images and an updated video, which we watched, of the suspect, the backpack, the shoes, the explosive devices, a map of the route they walked, when the pipe bombs were placed, doing loops and loop-de-doos. We urge anyone who may have previously hesitated to come forward or who may not have realized they had important information to contact us. 1-800-CALL-FBI or submit tips online. Best regards. All right, great. So basically a non-answer. Okay, so they're not even really acknowledging what we should do here. Did you even read the report from Steve Baker over at the Blaze? Are those the types of tips you would like us to look at? Because they're got tips that they're sending into you. Like, is that what you're talking about? Or have you already reviewed those and those are not accurate? Might be good to respond to the story if you can. Now, Kyle Seraphin, who is also a part of the story, who's in there, he said the FBI commented on this at 6:43 p.m. on a Sunday night. They said, well, we haven't found a way to spin this story yet, tongue in cheek. So please call 1-800-FBI-TIPS if you have any ideas. Okay, well, we do have an idea. We use gait analysis to match this person. So are we close? Like hot, warmer? Are we warmer? Colder, warmer? Hot? Are we hot? Where are we, Cash and Dan? Any updates on that? So here's the highlights of the story if you missed it. They did a gait analysis, just like out of True Lies with Arnold when they're walking down the corridor. I'm like, yeah, that's them. And they let him in. 94 to 98%. And a software algorithm was really responsible for it. Now, they identified this woman. Her name is Kerkhoff. And CIA says, oh, she's working for us now. Liz Lyons says that she worked in campus security. Now, her residence is in Alexandria, Virginia, appears to be right nearby. And the cops are outside her residence. Okay, so Blaze News editor went over there to check on her, and the cops are there. So the FBI, which failed to solve the case for 5 years, and like, well, just be patient, give them more time. Okay. But indicated that it was closing in after Blaze News brought its investigation to the intelligence sources. And Kyle Seraphin, he realized, the other gentleman, former FBI special agent, he realized on Friday when the story broke that he was doing surveillance next door to the woman now suspected of being the J6 pipe bomber. Wow. The FBI put us one door away from her within days of J6, and we were deliberately pulled away for no logical reason. So it's a gait analysis. Then they backtraced it to a location. Then they found another former FBI agent who says, oh yeah, that location, I was right there. And so very curious. It's not just, one bit of evidence. We're also corroborating it with the former FBI special agent who says, I was looking for this person and I was standing right there. And then they got pulled off from that because it was like, oh, it was that person. And everything about that tells me they were involved in a cover-up, says a former special agent from the FBI. Here's more photos. One of this woman playing soccer, Shauni Kerkhoff playing there. And Seraphin said they're effing in on it. He wanted to go do a knock and talk, but they said no. His team spent 2 days watching the man, but Seraphin wanted to go face to face. They said no. They did a gait analysis. They said about 98%, just like Arnold. Samples of her gait were pulled from CCTV security video and compared to unedited video of the hoodie wearing suspect walking through an alley near C Street. 2 other sources familiar with the gait analysis also said, yeah, it looks pretty dang good. Now, what's interesting about this article is that there's not the video, right? You say, all right, so if you guys doing your gait analysis, put those right next to each other. Like, let's see it. Screen record that thing. What does the software say? What does the analysis say? Give us some numbers. Now, Blaze News reported Wednesday the Capitol Police surveillance video showing Kerkhoff also used less than lethal force. And we're going to talk about that in the next segment because we have the testimony from when she testified at a January 6th trial and the police report where she said she was approved to shoot people from the upper balcony that we heard all about in the Proud Boys trial. And in fact, here's just a screenshot of that imagery from allegedly her, Shauni Kerkhoff, who again may or may not be the alleged pipe bomber, and pipe bomber maybe being a training exercise, just dropping off some toys somewhere. But here, she was also there on scene on January 6th. And so this whole thing feels a little bit curious over there. So the Blaze then, they continue. They say the pipe bomb and the video that they used was not official video, which also is concerning because you always ask about chain of custody. Okay, well, where did the video come from? And who had an opportunity to pervert it before you got your hands on it? Obviously, this is going to have major reverberations if this ultimately is true and if this woman is a Capitol Hill police officer. Who was asking her to do this? Was she doing this on her own volition or what? But Thomas Massey's asking about it. And we know that former Capitol Hill Chief of Police Stephen Sund is asking about it. He said, we are anxiously awaiting a statement from the FBI and the DOJ on this, okay? And full disclosure of their investigative efforts into the January 6th and the pipe bombs. We'd like to know. We've waited far too long for answers. Please answer us. This is Chief Stephen Sund, who was the Capitol Hill chief of police at the time of January 6th, and they smeared him and scapegoated him to make him responsible for the whole thing. Anxiously awaiting a statement. So are we. So if we look at this, whether there are any statements or not, let's go over to Kash Patel and let's do a refresh to see if he's talked about it today. Of course, any simple statement would be good. But no, 7 hours ago, FBI Miami, Washington field office, 24 arrests, gun recovery, Memphis safe, rest in peace to Officer Roger Smith. I mean that, rest in peace, Roger. Criminal complaint was unsealed from Ben Williamson about tweets about FBI Michigan plots. Somebody else died, man, terrible. Rest in peace to Devin Jeremia. Okay, so nothing on the J6 pipe bomber from Kash, not at all. Here's about Dan. What about Dan? Nothing. November 6th, November 7th, we're saving lives. Over here, Dan Bongino. We got 3 research scholars from China smuggling a bunch of crap into our country. Great. So nothing on the story from FBI Dan. So Dan and Kash, haven't heard from them. Pam Bondi, also, anything from her? No. Last thing was on the SNAP benefit judgment from the Supreme Court, which we covered last week. FBI sending their condolences to our fallen officers. Nothing from them. And CIA, apparently where this woman is working now, nothing from them. September 30th, they said, buy a jacket. Artifact of the week. Oh, it's not a merch shop. They're just showing us some cool jackets or whatever those jackets are. The Ike jacket. All right, so I don't know what it is. It's a cool jacket. I got to say that. I'm like, is it a Nazi jacket? Okay, it's not. All right. So anyways, we've got here, U.S. Capitol OSS was the original entity that became the CIA ultimately, right? So anyway, so one of their old jackets. Great. How about the Capitol Police? Wouldn't it be nice if they came out and they said, hey, you're saying one of our officers, our government employees who was there on this historic day? And by the way, remember when they had like sedition hunters? They were hunting American citizens who were not government officers, hunting them. Sedition hunters, bunch of randos on the internet saying, who's this and who's this and who's this? And they tracked them down and attacked them. Okay. Right now, those were citizens. So other people attacked them and everybody was perfectly fine with that. I'm not encouraging that. I think that was bad behavior, but they did that. Now, similarly, you have right now the Democrats who are attacking government employees. They're making apps about this. They're coding up whole apps. Oh, here's this ICE agent. Here's his name. Here's where he lives. Why don't you follow him home and attack him or kill him? Shoot them is really what, is happening out in Texas. Oh, just start firing rounds at him. So that's lunacy, right? Now, on our side, all we have are questions about this officer. I know nobody wants to get sued. We all are shell-shocked after Alex Jones had his entire life ripped away from him because of some insane lawsuits. I know that the Democrats attacked everybody's free speech after 2020. Shut up. We got called harmful and dangerous for our positions after J6. They censored us. They demonetized the whole thing. Okay, all of us, we've all lived through. We're all like shell-shocked. Don't say anything bad. We're not. All we're doing is asking questions about this woman who worked for the Capitol Hill chief of police, and the Capitol Hill chief of police, not even mad at this woman, they should come out and say, stop it, Steve. Stop it, Kyle. She is an amazing employee who did her service here. Or something, right? Even just a generic statement. After January 6th, the Capitol Hill the Capitol Hill Police Office, ERS Department, we did a full investigation. We looked at whether there were any outstanding training operations. We did an inventory of all of our devices. We vetted any unsanctioned activities from all of our officers, and we stand by the integrity of our officers and leave a real investigation over to the FBI. Leave the full investigation over to the FBI. Something. Okay, anything. Have they said anything? No, they haven't. Why? And it's not complicated. To just, one paragraph, you guys are off. You guys are cold. Not hot, you're cold. Go on to something else. They didn't do it. We also see Chuck Grassley, who apparently was also in a photo with this woman. Very strange. And of course, if she's Capitol Hill Police, she's there all over the place. Lots of access to a lot of people. Emails show, this is a 2018 article, that the Republican Senate staff stymied a Kavanaugh accuser's efforts to give testimony. Okay, whatever. It's from the New Yorker, one of those articles. And this certainly looks like her. Don't know if it is or not, but she's walking right next to Chuck Grassley, the chairman of the Judiciary Committee back in 2018. So very curious appearances of this woman kind of in location after location. So we'd like to see if, Grassley had anything to say about this. No. Capitol Police, no. Grassley's meeting with some other people. Let's see. Barry Loudermilk is talking about this, but before we get there, Stephen Sun also said, I've been saying this since the very beginning. Intelligence for J6 was handled completely differently. Yeah. The FBI produced no joint intelligence bulletin. Yeah. Intelligence assessments. The FBI held no in-person or phone briefings with local chiefs. Why would they? Intelligence assessments distributed up to, and even on the morning of J6, described only a remote or, quote, improbable chance of civil disobedience. None of these threats were mentioned in the January 5th video call, which I personally arranged and included the FBI. Okay. And Stephen Sun was there. He wrote a great book about it, said that they sent the National Guard, these pathetic people, to secure their homes, but they wouldn't send them to secure the Capitol because they wanted it to happen. And of course, we know, Mark Milley and all the goons were over there handling all of that. So Barry Loudermilk, apparently one of the only Republicans or only Congress people in the country who cares about this case still, is now out also posting about this. And he, in fact, is sending a letter over as well that looks just like this right here. He sent this one over to the director of the Secret Service, Barry Loudermilk, on the new J6 committee. He says, which is, given like a pittance, he's tucked in a closet somewhere behind all of the Christmas trees. All right. Like, just go back there. Well, it's weird and moldy. Shut up. Get back here. And then he's back there. Whereas the other J6 committee, remember, had Hollywood producers who came and orchestrated the whole thing that the media covered for days on end and months on end. It went on for months, like multi-episode series. Well, on next episode, you're going to see what's ridiculous. Now they're sending a letter over to the Secret Service from the new J6 committee, which is like just forgotten about. Here, Director Curran. The select committee to investigate the remaining questions surrounding J6, which are like all of them, since all of the original questions were not answered, is conducting oversight of the events that occurred at the Capitol and the response and subsequent investigation. During the 119th Congress, we have sought information regarding the discovery of the pipe bombs near the RNC and the DNC. On January 6, more than 4 years later, there remain more questions than answers. We don't even know the dates on when they were dropped off. We all think, kind of the standard story is they were dropped off the night before, but it doesn't really make logical sense. I mean, if they were supposed to explode, they had 1 hour timers and the mechanisms didn't seem like they would function and last for 24 hours at all. And then the woman who I think saw it outside the RNC, remember, she went out. She's like, I went and put my laundry in and I didn't see it. And I went to get my laundry out and I saw it. There it was. So somebody put it there on January 6th. So then it's not the person in the video. They were missing a person, if that is true. So we've got all these inconsistencies. And of course, we also have the deleted cell phone footage or data, rather, that nobody can get their hands on. And remember, this person was talking to a bunch of people. We had these clips here and also some strange ones. Mike Benz was digging into this a while back, and he shared these clips. He says, no, really, who was the J6 pipe bomber on the phone with before he, aka she, planted the pipe bomb? Who was she talking to? Were these just fake phone calls? All corrupted. Can't find it. It's all gone. No, because they corrupted the data when they were copying it. That's right. Cell phone companies that are in the business of transmitting data, making sure you don't lose anything, they lost a report and corrupted the original data so they can't run the report again at a cellular company. Give me a break. Okay, so Mike Benz also shared this. It wasn't the only time. Then they released the potato footage where they cropped out every other frame or whatever it was, and they made the frame rate like 3 frames per second in a format that no camera anywhere on the planet records in because they manipulated the data before they released it. Also, on the phone, texting people. And that pipe bomb was apparently dropped, right here in that corner between those two. So do we see that happening? Or did somebody else drop the bomb off later, right? So anyways, lots of questions about this, but who was this person talking to? FBI can't figure it out because all the data was corrupted. Yeah. The same cell companies that were sending the records of senators over to Jack Smith's team also conveniently corrupted the data of the J6 pipe bomber. So we got that. We also saw that this is a strange one from Taylor Hansen. And this was back on January 10th, 2020. Look how old this one is. It says, I assure you that this video of the unidentifiable pipe bomber is throwing a hand signal to the DC Police Department, or maybe it's the Capitol Police, as they drive by is completely normal and shouldn't be looked into at all. Right? This is the Capitol Hill Club, and here's the alleged pipe bomber or training bomber, whatever, walking down, hand goes up as the cops come by. Is that Capitol Hill Police or DC Police? I don't know. But hi, everybody. Hello, fellow cops. Very strange. So that's going on. And we've got the letter from Barry Loudermilk. He says, yeah, we got questions about this. Many more questions than we've ever answered. Given the presence that Kamala was there, Vice President-elect. Okay, she just pulled her car up there and they had lunch. Saying, we have questions about this. She was there at the DNC when authorities discovered the pipe bomb. Your agents may possess information that's necessary for our oversight, Secret Service, and request your cooperation in this process. Right. Same Secret Service agents who couldn't even stand on slope roofs. Nobody's been fired for Butler. That whole case, burn that body. That's gone. Nobody wants to talk about that either. On J6, VP-elect Harris, she arrived at the DNC at 11:25 in the morning. In preparation for her arrival, at least 10 Secret Service agents conducted a sweep of the premises around 8:30 a.m. This included the use of 2 canine units, but the units did not detect the pipe bomb. Maybe because there wasn't enough materials in there. But if it was a training operation, then they failed. And if, in other words, there was enough in there to trigger the dogs, then they failed. At 1:05, a plainclothes United States Capitol Police officer discovered the DNC bomb about 25 minutes after the device near the RNC had been discovered. One goes off, another one. It is generally accepted that pipe bombs acted as a means of diverting law enforcement resources. Remember that? And everybody got pulled from the Capitol, and then they tapped everybody on the shoulder and let them in. Notably, at almost precisely the same time as protesters started to breach the Capitol perimeter. And on January 6th at the day, we had this woman who was up here on the upper terrace firing projectiles into the faces and the heads of J6ers. And we heard this testimony back during the Proud Boys trial, which we covered extensively here. If you missed that, we got the whole thing on our channel. And that was agitating the crowd. Okay, it's like less than 10 minutes. They just showed up, crowd's there, boom, 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 boom. They just start shooting everybody. Then the pipe bombs distract everybody, and the whole thing is history. And if you remember, we played this video, I don't know, about 100 times. We're going to play it again because it's so good. But this was part of the scandal as well. What did I do with this? I thought I had this queued up. My apologies. Yeah, the shoulder tap right here. Remember this? Why was there a stand down order on January 6th? Why did these cops tap each other on the shoulder and then allow the crowd to come in? Okay, here you see there are multiple cops blocking these people from coming in the Upper West Terrace exterior. You can see the entry and the exit. So the cameras are like this. One's looking at the door coming in. One's looking as people walk by. And watch this cop right here tap this other cop right here on the shoulder, whisper something in his ear, and then pull all the cops back so that everybody can come in and then get charged with crimes. All of them for trespassing, parading in the Capitol, whatever. After being let in. Here, whisper. Hey, man, I got the order. We're standing down. Okay. Hey, buddy, you too. Come on. All three of us. Let's go. Let them in. All right, come on in. Not violent at all. These dudes are waltzing backwards. Come on in. Yeah, felonies. Felonies, come in. Perfect. More parading, more felonies. Come on in. Yeah, we'll show you around. What an insurrection that was, huh? Yeah, look at that. All of them invited in just to protest the Capitol. Okay, we have protesters in Capitol buildings all over the country. They don't have their houses raided and their doors kicked in. Happens all the time. We've seen it many times with all the pink hats. Just go into a Capitol building and just sit there and protest, okay? It's very common in America. Only in this version of America, when the hysterical Democrats and partisan fakers then create a narrative around their scam, does it turn into an insurrection and a seditious conspiracy and the undermining of American democracy and all those things. And so just to remind ourselves of what this was, okay, all of these people got invited in. They would have been standing there still if those cops wouldn't have had a stand down order and just said, let them in. Okay, so we'd like to know who those cops are too, obviously. But that's the Capitol Hill Police. They're there. Yeah, come on in, come on in. And everybody got charged with felonies, okay, and had their lives ruined because of these maniacs. So, Loudermilk continues to send the letter. Did we finish the letter? No. Says, this Congress, the Select Subcommittee will continue its vigorous oversight of the agencies that responded to the events of J6, ensuring that the unresolved questions are answered, that federal agencies are faithfully serving the American people, and that the Capitol is secure. Accordingly, we want this info. All transcripts in unredacted form in possession of the Secret Service of transcribed interviews of Secret Service personnel conducted during the Congress and your interviews with the fake committee, the prior J6 committee. We also want all documents and comms relating to a cell phone migration, system upgrade, or any other process or act by which employees of the Secret Service had their phones wiped of all electronic communications in the January to April 2021 timeframe. All the Secret Service records nuked. Look at this friggin' scam. USS cell phone records. Look at this footnote. Let me move my fat head out of the way. U.S. Department of Homeland Security, Office of the Inspector General, OIG Report 24-42. The Secret Service's preparation for and response to the events of January 6th. And in parentheses, U.S. Secret Service cell phone records from January 6th were lost due to a pre-planned cell phone migration that involved returning the device in use to factory settings. Oh, man. Wow. That's just, what a coincidence. And you know what else happened? Back during Butler, remember how none of their comms were recorded at all? Trump got shot in the head. Yeah. And nobody got charged with a crime. Nobody got fired. And then we said, can we maybe see what you guys were talking about? And then Kimberly Cheadle came into Congress and says, we don't record anything. Why? So that you can't catch us, obviously, idiots. So you can see they want more information from all of these other people. So all of the records were gone. The cell phone data of the bomber, gone. All of the archives that Liz Cheney and Benny Thompson were supposed to hand over to the incoming Republicans, gone, deleted. In addition, we want you to make the following individuals available for transcribed interviews. 7 names, all redacted. Please get us this information soon. We've got a select subcommittee who's been handed $15. Here's your $15. Don't spend it all in one place to go investigate this. Saying here, the events surrounding this, we're investigating. We got the rules to do it. Sincerely, your friend, Barry Loudermilk. Yeah, right there. So Secret Service hopefully can get some answers for us on that. But we saw, I think Julie Kelly was also listening in on the Glenn Beck show. Glenn Beck, of course, over with The Blaze, and saying that she, according to her, who listened to this, says Glenn Beck appears maybe to be walking back this story. People get nervous. Did we identify somebody erroneously who doesn't deserve it? And again, we've been very consistent here. Allegations only. She's a government employee. People like Thomas Massey, Stephen Sund, who was there on January 6th, the Capitol Hill chief of police, many others are saying, hey, we got questions about this. Former FBI special agent. And this is a government employee. They went after every single person who was even remotely affiliated with January 6th on the other side. Wrecked lives, kicked doors in, had sedition hunters targeting people constantly about this. And this person still works for the government, and a government agency could easily go and defend her. And we're waiting for that. But Glenn Beck being very cautious about this. And Julie Kelly says, sounds like Glenn Beck is walking it back. He refused to mention the name on air and said a match is not guilt. Comparison is not proof. And she's calling it reckless over there to put the name out. And I'm not sure, I can understand that on one perspective. Like if this is wrong and you're the agency that published it, you might say, well, what did you guys do there? Okay. In order to come to this conclusion and not to vet it before it actually got released. But also, I think we have every right to question our government employees and ask what they were doing on any given particular day. And then the agencies can come out and defend them. And the agencies, FBI, DOJ, any of them can come out and say, oh, no, we've done our due diligence. We appreciate your eagerness, Steve and the Blaze. Let the professionals handle this, okay? Let the FBI do it. Let the DOJ do it. We obviously looked into Capitol Hill Police. We did a gate analysis on 50,000 people, okay? It's not her. Whatever. But they haven't done that. And of course, they have plenty of time. It's only Monday, but how hard is it to just drop a statement like that so that all of this conversation on the internet just goes away? Oh, it's not her. They looked into her. Or maybe there's something to it, which is why they're trying to get their lines in order. So we've got that. Barry Loudermilk sent the letter. Steve Baker also is responding to himself. He says, beware of the influencers and the news media pundits who have long ascribed the J6 pipe bomb event as a government cover-up, as we have, who will now flip their own narratives and start quoting their own sources within the intelligence community who've told them that we have our story wrong. Every spokesperson in the IC is only going to say what they have been told to say, obviously. None of them have actually done the work or seen the evidence. And we haven't seen the underlying evidence either, right? But Steve has, the Blaze has, and you got to imagine they've got a pretty big team of lawyers and other people who are vetting this stuff. So you would imagine that there's something there if they're going to come out with a name. And I am happy to see some progress. Honestly, I don't want any innocent people to be caught up in this, but our FBI and our DOJ and all of these investigations have really not led to anything. And so if this is going to shake loose some answers, we're for it. But yes, the intelligence agencies, of course, aren't going to acknowledge it unless there is some uniformity there. And if they got beaten by the Blaze, okay, they're going to have every incentive to cover this whole thing up and to not say we couldn't find it, but Steve Baker and some gate analysis folks could. And I'm waiting for Dan and Kash Patel to come out on CNN and say, it planted itself. Trust us. It planted itself. We saw it. I saw the video. They planted themselves or something like that. And then Trump comes out and says, it's a hoax. The whole thing is a hoax. Shut up. Here, take this binder and shut up. It's like, all right, look, we're not going to do that. We want answers. We're not trying to accuse anybody, but if the agencies have done their due diligence and investigated these possibilities, then presumably they can just come out and say, there's nothing there. But otherwise, we want an explanation. We want to know what, if it's not this person, then who, and what is the evidence? Because the clock is ticking on a lot of these things. And the further we get from the source, the less interest there is to actually pursue these things to fruition. Everybody just moves on. So here is Barry Loudermilk. Here's what Barry said over on With Just the News.
Were those informants providing more stark information about the dangers that could have happened on January 6th, and was that not getting to the right people?
Most of the reports were it was going to be a whole lot worse than what actually it turned out to be.
I've also heard rumblings that maybe Antifa was a concern that the FBI had on that day.
Yes, there was concerns that Antifa would be embedded within the crowd.
Lots of questions about it, and not much from the FBI, DOJ, Capitol Hill Police, Metro Police. Nobody's really talking about it. But Steve Baker and the Blaze have the story out now. We're going to keep our eye on this one. But we're not done yet. So let's turn our attention to what is going on in this scene. We got some trial testimony to get to. Here it is. Lots of questions about Shauni Kerkhoff, the woman seen here in these photos working for the U.S. Capitol Police on the day of January 6th up on the upper terrace, shooting projectiles into the faces of January 6ers. And the Blaze did a story on this saying that they were firing those off basically immediately. They published this not long ago. They wrote, Capitol Police repeatedly used lethal force on protesters early on January 6th, instigating the whole thing, right? You're standing there protesting, you're getting shot in the face, you're in a giant crowd, things spiral out of control. You've got a pipe bomb right, around the corner that is allegedly about to blow off. That's just been found. It was total bedlam. Doesn't help when you're shooting people in the face. People get a little bit riled up. So they said that in the span of less than 10 minutes after a huge crowd of protesters filled the Capitol West Plaza beneath the inauguration stage, the Capitol Police, within 10 minutes, repeatedly used lethal force on the crowd, targeting people in the head, the neck, the face, the upper body. Actions that one use of force person called criminally negligent to do that. And we heard this testimony directly from the Proud Boys in the trial when they said that they were there watching people's cheeks get blown off. They're like, holy, we're like under attack. People are shooting us. During that brief span, at least 16 people were shot with kinetic impact projectiles, including 9 who took shots to the top of the head, face, and the base of the neck, according to Capitol Police. The rounds are designed to be shot at or below the waist and skipped off the pavement to strike the legs. It's called pain compliance. None of the rounds observable on the footage struck below the belt because it was a crowd, putting all the observable rounds in a dangerous and potentially lethal territory, shooting people in the head. The targeting of the crowd was one graphic bloody injury to a protester's face enraged the crowd. That's the guy who got his cheek blown out, and appeared to lead to a large-scale escalation of violence. They said, they're shooting us, including the throwing of water bottles, flagpoles, and the use of pepper spray and the bear spray repellent. Now, there were a bunch of people who were on these calls. Deputy Police Chief called Eric Waldo. He claimed that a Capitol Police radio dispatch about 1:11 p.m., he said that his officers were using indirect firing. He says, hey, okay, everybody, we're using indirect firing, but the surveillance video says no, he's popping them in the mouths. Waldo also said that he gave repeated warnings to the crowd to disperse or face chemical munitions. But video shows he did not even have a bullhorn, liar, and no warnings could be heard on the ground level to anybody. They just started shooting people. He ordered Capitol Police Grenadiers to open fire on the crowd at 1:06 p.m. He said, I got a crowd fighting with officers, pushing, throwing projectiles, he broadcast. I have given warnings about chemical munitions, liar. I need the less than lethal team position above me to identify the agitators and start deploying. Launch, launch, launch. Stan Kephart, an expert witness on police use of force, reviewed the video, said crowd control weapons from an elevated position is criminally negligent and potentially a lethal act because somebody can get hit in the head with that. There's a wealth of clear and convincing evidence here, he says. These cops weren't trained, and what they did was a punishment tactic, okay? It was inflaming the crowd. It was resulting in injury that they're all responsible for. Now, the Grenadiers, the Capitol Police, who fired at the crowd were up from a crow's nest outcropping during the first hour, and that included Officer Shauni Kerkhoff, the alleged pipe bomber, who was working for the government at the time, is still working for the government, and we have questions about her conduct and who ordered her to do the things. And we're not going to be like the Democrats and dox her and try to harass her, of course, because we're not maniac criminals like they are. But they get away with it. So anytime you have any people harassing you about, well, why are you talking about somebody until they're charged with a crime or something? Yeah. We have questions about the operation. Nobody's making any allegations that she's criminally responsible for anything. But we do have questions about the conduct, and we're allowed to question our government. And we are. Blaze News has learned that many of them were there shooting at people in the mouths. And we saw this over from Nova Campaigns. They said, the Epoch Times reported that Officer Shauni Kerkhoff, the alleged pipe bomber, was shooting people in the face. Here's their use of force report that came over from her. Here's the date and the name, Shauni R. Kerkhoff. Capitol was the location of the incident. January 6, 2021, 12:30 hours is when the incident happened. She called it compliance techniques, and she shot a pepper ball launcher. The supervisor in charge of the scene and others were on scene. The deputy chief was Waldo, right there. Okay, the guy we just heard, order, launch, launch, launch. I'm a liar. I said I'm warning you. Never did. Then we're following the bouncing ball. So he gives the order, goes over to her. Other people, Officer Sorrell, DeCamp, Cobert, Sprifke, and multiple other unknown officers are all up there. And they're all just popping off. Less lethal launch discharge. And here's page 2, where she explained what happened. She says, on January 6, 2021, at about 12:15, I was ordered by Deputy Chief Waldo Eric to deploy less than lethal munitions on an overwhelming number of rioters at the U.S. Capitol. I deployed multiple pepper ball projectiles from the pepper ball launcher to gain compliance from the rioters that were aggressively attacking officers on the police line and throughout the Capitol complex. And now we have a chicken or the egg problem, don't we? Were they shooting before things got riotous, or were things riotous before they started shooting? Maybe we'll get some answers on that. But I think we know, based on the fact that they just tapped other so-called protesters, rioters on the shoulder and let them in the building. So we've got the letter, of course, that we're reading here says, Pepperball, they were aggressively attacking us. Anything else? Was the watch commander notified? Yes. Were you involved in the incident? No. Were there any injuries treated? Unknown injuries. Based on your review of this use of force, do the circumstances support the use of force? She says, yes. Do you recommend further investigation? No, of course not. Why don't you investigate me? Does anybody ever check that box? Yes. Yes. Please come and see if I did anything wrong. Yes, please. Hey, employee signature. She signs it. They all sign off on it. Yeah, they all sign it after the fact. She signs it on the next day, January 7th. Supervisor. Yeah, great job. Way to go. Shot him in the face. And then another one on the 14th. So they all sign off on the use of force, and the blaze continues. And what we saw is that, man, they're saying this is a forensic match to the alleged pipe bomber, as we've covered previously. But the number of protesters struck is much higher than previously known. The fusillade of so-called less lethal crowd control weapons came in response to thousands of protesters. They streamed onto the Capitol property after a lightly defended police line was breached. Most of the early crowd ended up on the West Plaza beneath the crow's nest, and the massive amped up crowd caught police off guard. There was insufficient security to defend the Capitol, in part because many officers were diverted to go respond to the pipe bombs that allegedly Kerkhoff left the day before. And then she's up there shooting people. Here's more. Protester was there, led away by a medic. He got shot in the face. See that right there? Oh my goodness. Now, surveillance video captured the Lower West Terrace, the flight of a .68 caliber yellow marking round and red pepper rounds from the powerful FN-303 projectile launchers. It's a 3,000 PSI compressed air device. Rounds traveled 300 feet per second. A Tippmann 98 pepper ball rifle was also used on the crowd. Most of the rounds were fired from less than 50 feet away. Targeting the head with kinetic impact projectiles is prohibited by the manufacturers. They didn't care. It's considered lethal force to shoot him in the head. The website also says, don't aim at the head. There's the device. Don't shoot people in the head. They're like, well, we have to save democracy. Boom, 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 boom. We have to stop our rigged election. Boom, boom, boom. Just taking out protesters. The primary effect of the projectile is trauma. It neutralizes the aggressor. Operators of this weapon are trained not to aim at the head, face, or anything like that. And here's the crowd. There's people on the upper terrace shooting them in the face. Then things get out of control. The bombardment of the early crowd is the latest controversy that they lied about. Minutes after the less than lethal projectiles were unleashed, MPD flowed into the West Plaza, spraying protesters with pepper spray. After protesters pushed back, then 40 munitions were fired or lobbied into the crowd after pushing protesters back and forming a police line with bicycle racks. And so, yeah, if you really want to start a riot, shoot them in the head. Easy to do that. So then it sounds like, they're shooting first. Minutes after less than lethal projectiles were launched, then they flew in. Then after pushing the protesters back, then they began lobbing dozens of incendiary grenades into the crowd and firing 40 millimeter shells containing plastic pellets, beanbags, and tear gas. Some 40 munitions were fired or lobbied. And then others at 118. Capitol Police Supervisor comes on the radio. We need munitions. Unload it all. Take them out. Keppert set the descriptor less lethal weapons. Depends on the launchers being used. And accuracy, of course, is a question. I wouldn't be comfortable, said this weapons person, shooting people in the face. Here was some other dude who got his head blown off. The Department of War expert said emotions can be inflamed when the weapons are used improperly. Yeah, amps up the crowds, causes a riot. Somebody screamed, we heard this in the Proud Boys trial, they shot him in the effing face, man. They shot him. A grenadier fired a .60 caliber fin stabilized projectile from a launcher that struck a black cat clad protester in the head. The impact blew the man's hat off. The round bounced off his head and struck another rioter. Just prior, video showed the man was in the second row, surging towards. As the police pushed back, the projectile screamed past the flag, struck him in the head. 7 seconds later, a man in a tan jacket was also struck by a projectile. He flinched, grabbed his head, and crouched down. They're all just getting shot in the head. Some 30 seconds later, another man was shot, and the list goes on and on. Typically, they aim for the ground, but this case, they didn't really like these Trumpers. So, massive article, goes into a lot more detail there, but we know the story. This woman, the alleged pipe bomber, is on the terrace, engaged with a different device. Looks like just more like a paintball gun rather than those bigger 60 caliber projectiles, but still shooting at people, and up there after allegedly dropping off the pipe bomb. Now, we don't know if that's true or not, of course, but it certainly is an interesting compare and contrast on that one. Now, we also see this person called Guy Refit. He's over on X at Guy Refit J6. He was prosecuted by these people who, of course, could find every single J6er who waltzed in the building, many of whom who were tapped on the shoulder and let in, as we played in this video, tapped on the shoulder, and they just walk right in. Well, he was prosecuted, and guess who testified against him? That's right. Shauni Kerkhoff came to talk to him and the jurors in this trial in the District of Columbia. And our friend Guy Refit, who was prosecuted and convicted and now pardoned, released the transcripts for us. He got 87 months in prison, $2,000 fine, all pardoned, and now released, which of course is good news. But he posted these documents. And so let's get into what's happening here. We've got two documents I wanted to review. One is of the opening and the introduction of the witness. And one is of the, I think, day 2 of the witness testimony. And so let's start back up at the top and see exactly what's going on over here. So we've got some testimony. We're in the trial. Court says we're going to take a brief recess. And then the judge, so the trial is just starting. All the jurors now getting seated in. All right, he's pled not guilty to these charges. You're going to do a great job. You guys are, thank you for doing your service. And then the prosecutor comes out with their opening statement. He led a mob up the stairs to overwhelm the Capitol, and goes crazy. He goes on, Nancy Pelosi's a hero, and blah, blah, blah. Prosecutor drivel coming out of their mouths. Then, confronted with this defendant standing on the banister out in front of the angry crowd that continued to grow behind him, the officers did their duty, says this DOJ prosecutor hack. Says, Officer Shauni Kerkhoff launched pepper balls at this defendant. Designed for use as crowd control, they both heard on impact and released pepper gas. But he was not deterred. He didn't care. He stepped forward onto the banister. He appeared to be showing off. Every time he stepped forward, the crowd behind him also stepped forward. It's like Darth Vader. Dun, 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 dun. It's like, ah. Seeing that the pepper balls were not stopping them, Officer Kerkhoff called to her partner, Sergeant Adam, help! He came to assist her and brought a bigger, more powerful weapon, and the weapon is called the FN 303. And so they shot him. But that he was not deterred. He continued to walk up the banister. He's like, I don't care about your stupid guns. This is liberty. We're protesting a rigged election. Then he went into the banister. Then they hit him with OC spray. It looks like an oxygen tank. Sprayed him and other members of the mob. And that finally stopped their advances. But it gave us some time to regroup. And you're going to hear, ladies and gentlemen, that this entire time, Mike Pence and over the next 15 minutes, the crowd and blah, blah, blah. Okay, now we fast forward and let's see what else we got. Now, the government and let's see, is this the defense? Goes through the counts. Ordinarily, a person's intent cannot be conferred, but prosecutor then wraps up with their statement, and that's why Guy Refit is guilty. Then the defense comes out, and they say he never interfered. He was told to get back. As soon as he was pepper sprayed, that was the end of it. The whole thing lasted 5 minutes. They're being dramatic. Now, he did not even go into the Capitol. He didn't break anything. He didn't take anything. He does brag, he exaggerates, he rants, he uses hyperbole, and that upsets people. But the evidence is going to show that this case has been a rush to judgment. The trial, the rush to judgment, it's based on bragging, that's it. Because he was like, hello. This trial will be about facts versus hype, and it's going to be about truth versus fiction. And that's like the shortest opening statement you've ever seen. All right. Thank you, Mr. Welch. And we got tech. The judge is talking about tech. And okay, a couple preliminary questions. Well, the witness is going to be Officer Kerkhoff, Your Honor, who we're going to call. Couple things to flag for you when it comes to Shauni. One is she's going to be displaying the 4 less than lethal weapons that we talked about. So she's going to bring all these weapons with her. And we're also going to have another officer sit in the front pew with her, if that's okay. And when she wants to describe the weapon, then he's just going to hold the weapon up. His name's Jerry, and he's going to, okay, any problems with that? No. Okay, that's fine. And that's that. Okay, she's going to come to the podium. And they're talking about more, trial stuff. If Your Honor at the same time would please instruct the jury that her statements are being introduced for truth and other statements are being introduced to explain what the evidence is for. Okay, and then she is now getting started. Perfect. All right, prosecutors, you ready? Yes, we're ready, Judge. All right. Yes, Your Honor. The government calls Shauni Kerkhoff. Shauni Kerkhoff comes in. Good morning, ma'am. Good morning. With the court's permission, could you please remove your mask if you're comfortable? COVID. I can. Could you please state your name and spell your name? Yes, my first name is Shauni, Shauni. Last name Kerkhoff, Kerkhoff. All right, and that black bar in front of the microphone, that turns it on and off, okay? Get a little closer. Pull that thing up to your mouth. Understood. And Ms. Kerkhoff, did you work, this is the prosecutor, as an officer with the U.S. Capitol Police on January 6, 21? I did. And how long were you an officer with the Capitol Police? Well, approximately 4.5 years. Are you still an officer with the Capitol Police? I am not. Do you work elsewhere in the federal government now? I do. Did your leaving the Capitol Police have anything to do with what occurred on January 6 or this case? It did not. I applied to my current position prior to the 6th. And did you leave the Capitol Police in good standing? I did. Thank you. What are the Capitol Police officers sworn to do, to protect Congress and its buildings? And how many divisions are there? 4. What are they? Sure, I'll explain them. She does. What is your day-to-day assignment? What was it in January? Oh, day-to-day? I was assigned to the Senate division. Are you aware of the phrase called collateral assignment? I am. And what is that? Well, it's an assignment you do in addition to your regular duties. What was your assignment? I was assigned to the civil disturbance unit, the less lethal team. Does that civil disturbance unit go by an acronym? We do. What is it? CDU. And we respond to anything from a peaceful protest to a riot. What kind of training do you do? Well, it's about 40 hours, and then there's continuing training each year. And you use less than lethal force, right? Is that correct? Yeah. What is that? Well, we use weapons. And is there a fancy name that people who are part of this call themselves? What is the fancy name? She's like, the fancy name is we're called grenadiers. So you were a grenadier? I was. How many grenadiers were there on J6? Approximately 10 officers and sergeants. You were one of them? I was. Okay, let's talk about January 6th, Shauni, says the prosecutor. Do you know approximately what time it was when you arrived for work that day? She says, yeah, it would be my normal time, about 6 a.m. Who was your partner? That was Sergeant Adam DeCamp. And on January 6th, were you doing your regular assignment in the Senate division? I was assigned to my collateral assignment. And how far in advance do you know were you told to be assigned to that? Which would be the crowd control stuff. Unsure of the exact time, but probably a week. What were you wearing when you left your offices on J6? I was wearing my regular duty. Had my vest, duty belt on, hat, sunglasses, and our grenadier backpack. Well, what's a grenadier backpack? Well, it's a backpack essentially with a place to put a launcher in the back of it and to store ammunition that we might have to shoot people in the face with. And you use the word launcher, right? Yeah, what is a launcher? Well, we refer to it as a less than lethal weapon. Why don't you call them guns? Well, I want to make a firm distinction. These are not lethal. And so this is not lethal, right? Right. Now, were you assigned to the east front of the Capitol? We were assigned to the east front of the Capitol. And at this time, I'm going to ask Ms. Rowe to pull up another document, Exhibit CO3. See that, Shauni? On this screen right here? Yes. No, I don't. I do not. Okay. Flip it. How about now? No, I just see a seal of some sort. It's looking like it's almost there. Can you see Miss Rhodes' screen where you're saying, like, okay, forget that. Can you see this screen? Yeah, I can. Do you recognize what's on the screen? Judge says, prosecutor, the rest of us can't see it either. I'm just authenticating it now. Well, I'm wondering if we're going to be able to see it, Mr. Hopkins. Can you tell? Like you're going to authenticate it and then admit it. Can we see it? Courtroom deputy says, well, I can see a screen from whatever the laptop is. Judge, okay, look, I'm not trying to get ahead of ourselves. I want you to introduce it. I just want to make sure that we stop if the rest of us can't see it. Mr. Welch, do you have a problem with that? Defense? No. I'll just walk around and see. Well, I think you see what everyone is seeing. Well, I would like to see what the witness is seeing, says the defense. Court says, yes, you should. Judge says, ladies, my apologies. Apparently, we're continuing to have the technology problem here. Sorry about that. So the courtroom says, all right, I can't see it. All right, anyways, may I proceed? You may. Go ahead. Ms. Kerkhoff, do you see the screen now in front of you? I do. Okay, this is Exhibit 603. Do you recognize what this is? Yeah, I do. What is it? It's a three-dimensional picture of the Capitol building. Is this approximately what the Capitol building looked like on J6? Yeah. We move to admit. Any objection? No. Okay, Ms. Kerkhoff, the east front, you indicated earlier, yes. Which side of the building is that we're looking at on the screen? Well, it's going to be the area opposite of the stage. It would be the furthest back here. And where are you? Well, I was over here shortly before. What were your observations? Well, there was a large group of people starting to form along the bike rack. What did the bike rack line demarcate? Well, that was one of our security perimeters. So the people on the east front that you were observing, were they inside the secured perimeter or outside? At that point, they were outside. Do you have a radio on? Yeah. Is that standard? Yeah. Prior to coming in, have you reviewed a snippet of these radio comms? I have. And were those radio comms you heard with your own voice and others authentic as far as you can know? Yeah. We move to admit. Any objection? No. All right. So the judge says, all right, we got these radio recordings. Transcripts are also going to be furnished. These are being introduced for different purposes, but they're coming in. Thank you, Judge. Evidence comes in. Now, we actually just heard from a colleague in the overflow room that they can't see the screen. We can't get the screen working, so members of the public, they're trying to watch this, and so they can't see anything. So we're going to take a break here and try to figure this all out. Recess is taken. So that's one set of documents provided by Guy Refit. Here's the other set, much longer documents. Afternoon session. We're back on the record. And here is the testimony. All right, so I'm sure there's a workaround here. Trying to get all this COVID crap figured out. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you had a nice lunch. Sorry for all this total disaster when your tech doesn't work. All right, can you please state your name again for us? Yeah, I can. It's called Shauni Kerkhoff. All right, Shauni, before we took a little break, we were looking at this other exhibit, says the prosecutor. It's an audio file. The audio, we understand, comes through the speakers. And they ask her about where she was. And those calls came in on the radio? They did. All right. Well, we're going to get back to the radio file in a minute, but where were you when this happened? What path did you take? Well, I originally tried to go inside the building. The building was locked down. We had to go out back. Walk us through this diagram. And we get an objection. For what? Well, he should not be marking the exhibit. The witness should be marking the exhibit. He's leading her. He shouldn't be like pointing, like give her the marker, let her touch it. All right. Prosecutor, were you going to have her come down and do that or what? He says, well, I was going to, but then I thought it was going to be awkward. So I was just going to help her do it. So do you object to this? So the court said, yeah, this will be more laborious. So they're figuring out who's holding the marker. All right. Question, Ms. Kerkhoff. With the court's permission, can you come down here? Let me give you the marker or just point with your finger. Okay. Use your finger. All right. Because you don't want him saying, were they right here? She's like, yeah, that's where they were. Yeah. He's like, no. She can point. She can touch it. Okay. So we were approximately here. We tried to go inside the building. It didn't work. We went back outside the building, ran around the exterior. This was our path. We went over here. All right. Thank you, Ms. Kerkhoff. And just to be clear, you drew a circle. You kind of traced this path. Objection. Now he's testifying. She should be testifying. says the defense. Good for them. We are just trying to confirm for the record, this is not a permanent exhibit, right? The witness needs to do this. Like, do you have any objection to any of this or what? He said, well, the witness has to say it. He can't put words in her mouth. All right, says the judge. This is going to take more time than it needs to, but okay, go ahead. Judge is like, just let him testify for her. We'll go much faster. The whole case would go much faster if the prosecutor could do all the testifying. Judge, that's going to take forever. Just let him just explain all the evidence. Okay, I just disagree. We need to make a record of what's going on. And the defense is still objecting and saying, make her write it and, like really slow this thing down. He's trying to testify. All right, so the judge, fine. Okay, fine. I'm going to explain what's happening here. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you've heard Officer Kerkhoff testify about what she did. Her testimony is testimony. Anything that Nestler, the prosecutor, says is not testimony. Okay, he's making a record of the line, but don't take his words as evidence. He's just describing the line. Okay, defense attorney, are you happy with that? It's like, no. Well, that's too bad. That's what's happening. So, okay, this is correct. What did you observe when you got to that center stage, officer? Well, I, along with several of my teammates, were up on the center stage in that half area of the stage where there's a railing. And just beyond that, we saw a crowd of people infringing upon the security perimeter. Judge says, can you just mark there what she just described? Yeah, I'm on the west side, so I can indicate that. Absolutely. All right. So right where I drew that circle, you're going to see a half circle. And that's where I was with my teammate. Okay, great. We will get to what you observed there. But did you go to a different part of the Capitol? Yeah. What area? Well, I went to this area over here. So for the record, you went over here. And Ms. Kerkhoff, you can please be seated. All of the diagrams are drawn. Now, when you were in the center area at the half circle, you said you saw a crowd. I did. How would you describe it? They were violent. And you're aware of the security perimeter? Yeah. And you could see the security perimeter from where you were. And we did have 2 security perimeters. And they start playing some audio. You know what this is? This is an image or an exhibit of the security perimeter. They publish it. Where were these security perimeters? Over here. Okay, she's up, she's down, up at the podium, drawing all sorts of documents. You drew a line in a circle here, and then the bike racks. I was carrying my belt duty, and we're going to fast forward through a lot of this because I want to get to the defense if we have that. But let's a lot of describing here, lots of large people. Okay, another exhibit coming in. Now, I hate to ask you to do this again, but would you draw a little bit more for us? Oh, no, I don't mind at all. Happy to. Gets off, draws some more with their crayons and coloring books. What else did you see? A tactical helmet on, a megaphone, a person. Did he have any things in his hands? It was a megaphone, a blue jacket. Goes through a bunch of people. Do you recognize this video montage? They play another video for her. One slide forward. Did you see an individual over here? Yeah, who is it? That was the defendant. Guy Refit. It's blocked by a wooden beam. Are you aware of security videos having audio capabilities? No, I'm not aware of that. They're playing some more video. What's he doing with his megaphone? That's another sergeant. We have grenadier backpacks. At this time, I'm giving verbal commands. Stop doing it. Did he comply? No. Did you advise him? Yes. What did you tell him? That I was going to shoot him with a pepper ball gun? Why did you advise him of that? Because it's my policy. What is the point of advising somebody? To give them an opportunity to remove themselves. Did he stop? He did not. So what did you do? I engaged him with a pepper ball launcher. And what does that mean to engage somebody? I launched projectiles at him. Okay, but you didn't shoot bullets, right? That's correct. And when you launched the projectiles, did you hit him? I did. Did you notice anything? I did. I noticed that they didn't seem to take effect. Guy Refit is like the T-1000. Just like all these pepper balls, like nothing happened. He's like, pulls it out, spits it out. It did seem like it didn't affect his behavior. What did that mean to you? That I needed to transition to something else. All right. So then he's posturing. He's like, you can't shoot me with your stupid pepper balls. I'm fueled by liberty. And fair elections. So then somebody else comes out. You said your partner had come up here too. She's continuing to launch projectiles and give verbal warnings. That you said that your partner, Sergeant, had arrived. He came out. He's like bringing in the big gun, almost like in T2 when Arnold came out with the grenade launcher, literally. Remember that? He was utilizing the FN 303 launcher. Who was he launching those projectiles at? The defendant. Did they seem to have an effect? They did not seem to have an effect. Oh, they can't even. This guy's unstoppable, baby. What was your concern at this point? My concern was, well, we need to transition to something else, like a bazooka. They play the files. Dude, nothing. It's bouncing off of him. He's like the Hulk. So he's only getting angrier. And did you see an individual who entered the frame from the left? I did. Who was that? Another cop. What was he wearing? A gas mask? At this time, were you wearing a gas mask? I was not. Why not? Well, I didn't put it on yet. Then he moved closer to you. Did you see what crowd behind him had done? Yeah, every time they took a step, he took a step, they took a step. This dude is like the Grim Reaper, just marching like one step after another, just getting blasted, and nothing's happening. How did that make you feel? She said, well, this is becoming a dire situation. I just kind of angered a rhinoceros or something. Did you see what Sergeant Flood was holding? Yes, I did. What was that? It was an OC canister. Like, all right, so here we go. And if we could play it forward play the next video. Then this dude comes up with like a friggin' fire hydrant of OC spray, spraying him. And finally, he's like, all right. Other people telling me, we're about to blast this dude. You indicated you were not wearing a mask. So what does that mean in terms of any spray hitting you? I would probably be affected by it. Have you been hit with spray before? Yeah. What's the reaction? Oh, it's an intense burning and stinging of the eyes and nasal passages. Do you recall what these people were saying to you? Yeah, they were calling us traitors. And he was there to spray it, but he hasn't sprayed it yet. They're calling us traitors. How did that make you feel? It made me very angry, just like the Hulk. But it's my job to stand in their way. Well, what was your concern? That they would get members of Congress. They play another video. Okay, did you see what he just pulled out of the backpack? Yeah, what was it? A large canister of OC spray. Play some more. What happens? They play it for a few more seconds. Did you see what he was doing with his right arm? I'll rewind it. Watch that again. What's he doing at this minute? Can you see what he's doing? What was that? He's waving the crowd to go past him. Play it again. And what did you see the defendant doing now with his right arm? Could you play it again? I'm sorry. A lot of stuff to focus on. She said, what's he doing? Okay, we'll go back a couple seconds. Okay, she says, yeah, there it is. Waving for the crowd to go past him. Okay, if we could pause it there. Do you see what the crowd is doing? Well, the OC is about to be utilized. What color is it? It's orange. All right, play the video. Did you see the spray get deployed? I did. And who was doing the deploying of the OC spray? That would have been Sergeant Adam DeCamp. And where's he standing right now? All right, let's take a break from this video and talk about these weapons. You're on the civil disturbance unit. Yeah, pepper ball, blah, blah, blah. What does this do? This pepper ball. Other dude holds it up. You see what this officer's doing? Starts going through the weapons. Okay, it's just demonstrative. This is what it looks like. It uses compressed